It's been about 2 weeks and they haven't found Savannah Guthrie's mother. Insane. Poor 82-year-old woman. In this video, let's take a look at Sunday morning to see what are the latest reports. Right? So stay with us while we take a look and see if she'll get free. Now that the FBI is on it and Trump is on it, hopefully she'll come out alive. All right? Let's take a look.
Reinforcing its foreign affairs agenda.
Sorry, give me a minute.
At the Munich Security Conference, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio urging Europeans to reclaim sovereignty and confront common threats. With China and Iran on the march as tensions intensify with Iran's brutal regime. And President Trump now calls for regime change. In terms of Iran, how would you assess the situation today? Do you believe Iran has been deterred?
Given the hardline ideologue supreme leader, it's not clear to me that they really are going to recognize the reality with, in a few days, 2 entire aircraft carrier task forces in and around Iran. You have other assets that are in Jordan, refuelers in Qatar. B-2 bombers, of course, can fly all the way from the United States and drop their bombs as they did in the final day of the 12-day war. So the question is, and the president captured that, will they be willing to negotiate seriously, or are they going to have to face very, very considerable military strikes by the United States?
Coming up, former Crown Prince of Iran, His Highness Reza Pahlavi, is here live from the Munich Security Conference with reaction to the president's call for regime change. Tennessee Senator and key Senate Foreign Relations Committee member Senator Bill Hagerty is here as President Trump also secures a golden age for the economy here at home. White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing Peter Navarro with the latest Goldilocks data. Plus, Florida Congresswoman, House Oversight and Foreign Affairs Committee member Anna Paulina Luna will join me on securing America's elections with the SAVE Act. Then the story gripping the nation. Former hostage negotiator in Iraq and retired Navy SEAL Dan O'Shea will join me with former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker and the latest on the search for Nancy Guthrie. It's all right here, right now on Sunday Morning Futures. And today, intensifying tensions between the United States and Iran. Coming up, the former Crown Prince of Iran reacts to President Trump's call for regime change in Iran. But first, here at home, with the latest on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, as police search for the missing 84-year-old last seen 2 weeks ago at her home in Tucson, Arizona. Alicia Acuna is live outside of Guthrie's home in Tucson right now. Alicia.
Hi, Maria. And one of the tools that investigators are using in the search for Nancy Guthrie is a Bluetooth scanner that's placed at the bottom of a law enforcement helicopter. Fox News Digital reports it's being used in an attempt to detect Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker. The aircraft flies low to the ground, hovering over the search area. The scanner picks up on the unique Bluetooth signal coming from the pacemaker as it tries to sync with its transmitter or phone app. The pacemaker doesn't have a locator, so it doesn't work like, say, our phone or devices that have GPS. On Friday evening, the FBI and sheriff's investigators detained and released 4 people after a lead prompted a search of a home about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's and a traffic stop near a Culver's restaurant. Also this week, the FBI officially referred to the man seen on Nancy's door cam as a suspect, describing him as a male of average build between 5'9" and 5'10", carrying a black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker backpack that is sold at Walmart. The Pima County Sheriff's Department also asked folks who live in the 2-mile radius of Nancy's to check their security camera footage between January 1st and February 2nd, the day after she was taken.
You think you'll find Nancy Guthrie alive?
Absolutely, yes. I have nothing but hope. You can't do this job without having that kind of hope. We know that there's challenges and the potential is there for a bad outcome, but nobody, 400 cops out there, they all have hope and belief that this is a rescue mission.
And Maria, it's been exactly 2 weeks since Nancy Guthrie was reported missing, and so far, no arrests have been made and really no major breaks in this case. Maria?
All right. Thanks very much. We'll continue to follow your reporting. Alicia Acuna in Tucson. We'll have more on the search for Nancy Guthrie coming up with former hostage negotiator in Iraq, Dan O'Shea, and former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker. But first, this.
Do you want regime change in Iran? Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen. For 47 years, they've been talking and talking and talking. In the meantime, we've lost a lot of lives while they talk, and legs blown off, arms blown off, faces blown off. It's been going on for a long time.
That's President Trump on the potential for regime change in Iran as Washington and Tehran engage on a deal that would stave off military action against Ayatollah Khomeini's brutal regime. And as a U.S. armada is expanding in the Middle East after President Trump ordered the USS Gerald R. Ford and its escort ships to the region from the Caribbean Sea after taking part in the capture of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro last month. The world's largest aircraft carrier will now join the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group, already positioned in striking distance to Iran. Meanwhile, at the UN, Iran was elected without objection as vice chair of the UN Commission for Social Development, which includes a focus on social justice and women's rights, if you can believe that one, as tens of thousands of protesters have reportedly been killed in Iran since the anti-Khomeini protests began just over 1 month ago, demanding freedom against the brutal regime. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is His Royal Highness, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, live this morning from the Munich Security Conference in Germany. Your Highness, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Maria, for having me again on your program.
And I want to begin in Munich because we are told 1 million people marched in support of you and regime change. What is your reaction to President Trump responding to a question saying it is time for regime change, and give us a sense of what went on in Munich this weekend?
Maria, first and foremost, I want to say how proud I am of my fellow compatriots at home and abroad. That shows an unprecedented show of unity and support for one another. My brave compatriots, despite the massacre that took place a couple of weeks ago, still came to the streets, still continued to protest, and millions of Iranians were in support of them on the outside world. Records were broken. Here in Munich, we had 250,000 people plus that participated. In Los Angeles, in Melbourne, Australia, all over the world. And the gold medal goes to our Iranians in Toronto, which really broke the record. Over 350,000 people, some say even over 500,000 people were in that demonstration that took place yesterday in solidarity. Look, the Iranian people's ask is very simple. They want liberty. They want freedom. And of course, I think President Trump realizes that when he said regime change might be the solution, this is something we've been asking for a long time. One thing I would simply add to what the president said when he says the regime has kept on talking and talking and talking. But the president should also know that they have also kept on killing and killing and killing. As we speak, Maria, the killing hasn't stopped. As we speak, there are people that are being executed in Iran. There are people that are being arrested and tortured in Iran. That hasn't stopped. And that's why an intervention is so necessary, because the first ask of Iranians today at home and abroad is asking for help. This intervention is a humanitarian intervention to save lives that will otherwise also continue to be lost. This is how important and critical this intervention can be. And irrespective of the regime buying time to negotiate, which will never pan out because it's been a pattern of behavior by them that's simply buying time. Meanwhile, people in Iran are dying. And I hope the president realizes how urgent the intervention could save lives and also help us put an end to this unwanted regime.
How many people would you say have been killed in just the last month there in Iran for protesting against the regime?
The numbers that we have is a minimum of 36,000 people in the first 2 days.
That's
Some
crazy.
numbers are over 40,000. It's very difficult to calculate the full tally, but in the meantime, at least 40,000 people have been arrested. The number of people who have disappeared is yet to be completely realized. We had over 330,000 people who were wounded. In the meantime, the regime continues its killing by finishing people off on their hospital beds. They have coerced and they have threatened hospital workers and doctors. It's unbelievable, the level of atrocity that occurred in Iran. And I think the world now is realizing, thanks to social media, because as you know, internet has been disrupted and there's very little reporting done from Iran. But for what we see and what we gather, it is horrific what's happening. This is really on a scale unimaginable. And I think many people in the world today are showing their solidarity, not just normal people, but we're beginning to see legislators and government taking a strong stance. Chancellor Merkel here in Germany called this regime illegitimate. The foreign minister of Canada clearly stated a very strong words, and Europeans are beginning to join this momentum. This is huge for the Iranian people that we're finally getting acknowledged as being the victims, and the criminal behavior of the regime can no longer be tolerated.
Sir, you have positioned yourself as really the most recognizable face of the Iranian opposition as these protests continue. What do you want to say to skeptics out there who say the people are not polling that way, and some people may not want to see a return to the former situation before Khomeini took over?
Yeah.
Maria, you and I have spoken many times on the subject, but for the benefit of those who may hear it for the first time, the plan that we have for the transition ends up ultimately with the Iranian people having a choice to determine their future by the means of the ballot box and free elections. What I offer as a transitional leader to that end is to galvanize and unify the opposition, the secular democratic opposition, irrespective of whether they are pro-constitutional monarchy or pro-republic, to be able to have a healthy debate over the subject, but allow the majority of Iranians decide what should be the future of Iran in a democratic process that will be completely transparent and under international observation. The only way to ensure that the people of Iran stand up to be counted is to guarantee a process of free election in the ballot box. I'm here to offer that bridge to that future. That's why people trust me, believe in my leadership, and are solidly standing behind me so I could do my job and provide that alternative. The choice is there to make. I'm not determining the outcome. I'm providing the means to that end.
The president has kept the pressure on by applying new sanctions recently. Are the sanctions working? And specifically, Your Highness, what do you want President Trump and the Trump administration to do now?
Help.
We have announced at least 6 measures that can be immediately taken, that it could include also what U.S. can do in terms of policy. So beyond the fact that an intervention to neutralize the regime repressive forces in terms of its crackdown on people, and most of it are IRGC elements and the regime's machinery of terror and repression, the prescription of the IRGC, of course, was huge. Now we see that Europe has finally joined that rank. That's one item. I think the ghost tankers, which is a revenue source for the regime, is important. So the regime can no longer pay its mercenaries or its war machine. I think expelling diplomats is something that will be very critical, and going after their criminal behavior or anything that goes back to crimes against humanity, freezing assets of oligarchs, moving their money outside, talking about the kind of internet support and supporting that communication, asking for the unconditional release of all political prisoners in Iran. These are specific measures and ask that the world can put more pressure on the regime, but it will also show much more support to the Iranian people. And that should be an element that will expedite the process of hopefully getting rid of this regime, and finally Iranians can have an opportunity to speak for themselves.
Your Highness, thank you very much. We will be following this developing story very closely. We so appreciate your time. Exiled Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi.
Thank you, Maria.
We'll take a break, and then Japan's Iron Lady, a landslide parliamentary win, gives new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi a mandate to partner with the United States and President Trump. Former ambassador to Japan and Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty on the strengthening partnership and its impact on communist China. Then Maine Senator Susan Collins may be saving the day for the SAVE Act, giving Republicans a shot to pass election integrity as congressional Democrats dig in on opposing any voter ID. Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is here in moments. But first, President Trump's economy, booming growth and low inflation, expected to headline the president's State of the Union address, now 9 days away. So why are Democrats threatening to not show up? White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro, is here on the president's economic agenda in the year ahead. Stay with us.
That's crazy. Why would they not show up?
Welcome back. New data this week proving President Trump's economy is boosting Americans' bottom lines across the country. Inflation is down while growth, jobs, and wages are all up, as the Consumer Price Index rose 2.4% in the last year, beating expectations and marking an 8-month low in inflation. One of the big catalysts, lower energy prices due to the president's push for America's energy independence. Year over year, all energy is down 0.1%, while gasoline is down 7.5%. The result, real wages accounting for inflation are up 1.25% compared to Joe Biden's term when real wages were down 1.4%. And then there's jobs. 130,000 jobs were created last month in January, nearly double the expectations, with the unemployment rate down to 4.3%. Below economists' expectations. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has designated this upcoming Friday as its next opinion day, which could include its decision on the president's use of emergency tariffs. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is a White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, it's great to see you this morning.
Hey, Maria.
Can you assess the macroeconomic story for us and how it's impacting citizens today?
Absolutely. It's the perfect Trump economy in 2026. It's what we call a Goldilocks economy. The last time we saw what we're seeing now was 1998. And what are we seeing? We're seeing stock market over $50,000. That's Wall Street. But we're also seeing rising real wages. That's Main Street. We're seeing a return to manufacturing. We're seeing strong growth. And it's all happening in a disinflation environment where we're at or near Fed target. We're near Fed target. And it's really extraordinary what's happening, Maria. You and I, your day job during the week is looking at these macro indicators. We've had the jobs report come in with blowout numbers. We had the ISM manufacturing index, which is dear to my heart because I'm the counselor for trade and manufacturing. That's showing a very robust final jump in manufacturing. CPI, as you just reported, look, and this is happening because of tariffs, not in spite of them, as the critics would say, because if there were any tariff inflation, it would show up in the core. It's simply not doing that. So everything is hitting on all major cylinders, and the best is yet to come. I'll tell you, Maria, when Americans get those rebate checks on tax day, that's going to be the biggest rebate and broad-based in American history in 2026, unless of course the geopolitics gets in the way. It's shaping up to be beautiful. And one last thing I would say on this. The media's got to take some responsibility here, and the Democrats, to the extent they keep bashing us, irrespective of the data, that's going to drag down confidence. It's like, come on, like see the data, speak the data, be real. Trump economy, perfect, best year since '98. Will top that. It's probably one of the best years in modern American economic history. Not hyperbole. That's what the data is telling us.
Well, that is great news. And if you say things are even going to be better than now, I believe you, because I remember back in April of last year, it was so-called Liberation Day, when the president talked about his tariffs, and there was so much upset about it. I remember a day that the market was down 2,000 points. You came on my show and you said, the Dow is going to 50,000. And of course, it did last week. So congrats on that prediction. But Peter, I want to zero in on one other issue that's happening, and it is changing the economy at every level, and that is artificial intelligence. AI efficiencies are, in fact, replacing jobs, and people are worried that longer term, we will see their job go away because of AI. What's the plan at the White House to counter those AI efficiencies, and how serious of an issue are you looking at this?
It's a massive issue, and it's right on the president's desk and on his radar. I think the one that's been most publicized is the effect on electricity prices, and the president has already taken action. We're going to be taking a lot more, but there's water issues. There's the loss of agricultural land, and obviously there's going to be major structural shifts in the labor market. The issue for the United States of America is to balance the need to be at the leading edge and the leader in artificial intelligence, not just for economic reasons, but for national security reasons, because this will be one of the most dangerous weapons of war we've ever seen. We have to lead China and others on this, but at the same time, we have to be mindful of the impacts across this nation. And so we're going to have to deal with that. And so there's just a lot of thought, a lot of action on this. So stay tuned. But I'm telling you, President Trump is aware of all four dimensions of the problem.
Yeah, because he's balancing, on the one hand, wanting and needing to be the #1 global power on AI, beating China. And that means a build out of data centers. But on the other side, he's battling people like Senator Bernie Sanders and Richard Blumenthal, who are criticizing rapid data center build out, saying all of these data center build out, that needs to stop. I mean, you can't exactly stop if you're looking to be #1 on the global stage in terms of AI.
What needs to happen, Maria, is that all of these data center builders, Meta on down, need to pay for all of the costs. Emphasize on that. They need to pay, not only pay for the electricity that they're using on the grid, but they have to pay for the resiliency that they're affecting as well. They need to pay for the water. So there's action here going forward where we force them to internalize the cost. You can't be a Luddite like Bernie. I mean, Bernie's one of the great Luddites. But what you have to do is make sure the American people are not hurt. And the loss of farmlands, no small thing either. Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Agriculture, she's been a really bright light on so many crises we've had, dealing with egg prices, dealing with beef prices, dealing with AI. I just want to assure people that we're on it. We also feel your pain, America. We understand the ravages that inflation took on you because of Joe Biden's irresponsibility, but we are addressing that with economic policies that ultimately will make wages rise faster than the inflation rate.
Including the president's dramatic deregulation. Including the president's dramatic deregulation. But I know that American citizens need to bone up on AI to ensure that they are armed best for this changing jobs market. Peter, the president has a great story to tell for the State of the Union address, and of course, we will be there. Great to see you this morning, sir. Thank you. White House Senior Counsel for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for letting me help.
Quick break, and then the SAVE Act. President Trump is pushing for Senate Majority Leader John Thune to abolish the filibuster to pass voter ID. But he might not need it if Republicans unify on election integrity. Senator Bill Hagerty on the Democrats' efforts to prevent election security issues. Plus, Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is here on the rush for blue states to redraw congressional districts ahead of this year's midterm elections. Stay with us.
Voter integrity only makes sense. All right. Why isn't it secure? What's been going on? Let's take a look.
I do not believe that it's unreasonable or to show ID just to vote. And I remind everybody that less than a year ago in Wisconsin, they added that to the Constitution by a 63%, passing to put that in the Constitution.
And that's Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman with me here last weekend on his support for voter ID. The House on Wednesday passed the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the Save America Act, in a vote 218 to 213, with Texas Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar the only Democrat to cross party lines to join Republicans in voting for the SAVE Act. The bill now heads to the Senate, where Democrats are vowing to block it using the filibuster. The Republicans seem to have at least 51 votes, with support over the weekend from Senator Susan Collins from Maine. President Trump has called on Senate Majority Leader John Thune to abolish the filibuster, allowing a simple majority to pass the voter ID bill. But the so-called nuclear option does not have broad support among the 53 Republicans who fear Democrats can use it later to ram in their agenda if they regain control. Joining me now with more is Tennessee Senator Bill Haggerty, an integral member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and former U.S. ambassador to Japan. Senator, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here.
Likewise, Maria. Thank you for having me this morning.
Do you believe John Thune will bring the SAVE Act to the floor? And what about this standing so-called talking filibuster scenario? Will that be enough for you to pass the SAVE Act in the Senate now that you have 50 votes, thanks to Susan Collins' support over the weekend?
Yeah, well, I want to first applaud Susan Collins for coming on board. That gives us the votes necessary to do it if we can get it to the floor. I think you know this, the American public are broadly in support of showing voter ID. It's a north of 80% issue for the American public. You've got to ask yourself, who are the Democrats in the Senate representing? Over 70% of Democrats want this, yet we won't have a single Democrat that will support it. Why is that? You look no further than what they tried to push forward about 5 years ago with their HR1, S1, the whole voting apparatus that they tried to come in and change to do away with voter ID across the nation, to enlist 16-year-olds to vote, felons to vote, using taxpayer dollars to support campaigns and, frankly, to pay their own candidates.
It's crazy.
So they're so detached from reality. It's just amazing. What the SAVE Act does is very simple. It simply requires what we require here in my home state of Tennessee. It codifies that to demonstrate that you are indeed an American citizen. In order to vote, you have to be qualified. And then when you go to the poll, you have to prove that you're yourself by showing an ID. That is not hard. That's not difficult. And it does not impinge on the state's constitutional abilities to set the time and manner and place of elections. It seems like it should be a no-brainer, but the reason that it's not is because the Democrats under the Biden administration flooded this country with tens of millions of illegal aliens. They want chaos in the elections. They want no voter ID. And so you've got to really ask yourselves, who do they represent? Why are they trying to do this? I think the American public is with us on this one. We're looking at the talking filibuster. It's something that has not been used in a long, long time. It's a complicated process, but I think we're going to look at every way we possibly can to get this to the floor, to defeat the Democrats' obstructionism and do something that makes common sense for Americans.
So what you're saying is that the Democrats' policies do not resonate with American citizens, so they want illegals to come in and support their policies. And you also said you are right now examining this talking filibuster?
Yes, we're looking at it. We've gone through it as a conference. And now that we have Susan on board, I think we're going to be laser focused on this and any other method that we can utilize to get this onto the floor, because this is obviously something the American people want. I think what we'll have, if we actually implement it, is a higher turnout at elections, because people will have more confidence that the election of their vote is going to be sacred, it's going to be safe, and we're going to have voter integrity.
Okay. We've been talking about the Munich Security Conference this morning and, of course, the threats to America's national security, including Iran and China. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was at the Munich Security Conference, and she was asked a question about China. I believe she wants to run for president at some point. Let's take a look at how she responded. Watch this.
This is, of course, a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic, research, and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
I'm not sure what she was talking about there, Senator, but she was asked what the United States should do should China go into Taiwan.
Well, I think you can see the lack of seriousness among leading Democrats here in America. Contrast that with Secretary of State Rubio's speech. He did a brilliant job articulating the reason and the rationale for America to work closely with our European allies and to stand strong against adversaries like China. That's the type of leadership that America has got right now, thank goodness. And you see this non-serious behavior of someone like this going over to Munich when they're not prepared. It reflects poorly on America. I've got to think that that did not help her career politically to go and have an embarrassing moment like that.
Now, Senator, the president has been strengthening allies and the relationships across the world to be stronger ahead of his meeting with Xi Jinping in April and pushing back on China's aggression. You are the former ambassador to Japan, and I wonder your reaction to what we just saw in Japan, where Sinai Takaichi, the new prime minister, won in a landslide those parliamentary elections. Mm-hmm. What is possible between the U.S. and Japan?
The relationship is stronger than ever. President Trump is extraordinarily popular in Japan. That was certainly the case when I was ambassador. We worked very hard to make that bond strong with his friend and ally, Prime Minister Abe, a great man. Takaichi is actually a protege of Abe, and she's carried the ball even further. The Japanese public is responding. One, to President Trump's endorsement of Takaichi. That went a long way. She now has record popularity, and they have a supermajority for her party in the Diet in the Japanese parliament. So we see that coming together in a way that I think really reflects strength of our alliance, the strongest alliance in the world right now between the United States and Japan. And if you think about who doesn't like this, well, it's the CCP. You look at what the foreign minister of China said at the Munich Security Conference. He's obviously deeply concerned. If you look at what Defense Minister Koizumi said, Japan is standing strong. So we've got a strong partner from an economic standpoint, from a military standpoint, that projects strength in the region. North Korea, Russia, China are all disappointed in this.
All right, Senator, we're going to turn to the House in a moment, but real quick, is there any hesitation on John Thune's part to bring the SAVE Act to the floor in the Senate?
I think John and the entire leadership are looking at the best method to get this done. I think we all want it. We all want it to happen. So I won't get ahead of the leader. He's got to navigate the procedural aspects of this in the Senate. But I think it's clear. Certainly, Republicans want to see this happen. It's common sense, and I hope we get on it as soon as we possibly can.
Senator, it's great to have you this morning. Thank you so much, Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty.
Thank you, Maria. Great to be with you.
Thank you. And now from the Senate to the House, joining me now is Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, a key member of the House Oversight Committee. Congresswoman, good to see you. Your reaction to that conversation and what you expect from the SAVE Act.
Look, I think right now, America's made their voices very clear. They want voter ID. And I really will take a second to commend Senator Collins. She was the 50th representative to sign on to this. And this is a massive piece of legislation. So I'm going to be personally sending her 50 roses for Valentine's Day. She's America's Valentine's for that. But moving forward, look, Senator Thune has every ability to bring the standing filibuster to the floor. I know he famously came out maybe a few days ago and said that they might not have the time to do it. And I would actually argue that this is probably the number one thing, especially moving into the midterms. Many senators have said, well, if we do this, the Democrats are going to do this when they regain power. But the fact is, Maria, is that the Senate Democrats have made it very clear that they want mass amnesty. They want mass naturalization of illegals. And frankly, I think they're going to do it anyways. And so the only way to really secure our country for future generations is to ensure that Americans have faith in the voting process, and that if their senators work against their interests, that they can vote them out at the ballot box. And that's exactly what this will do. So I am frankly behind every senator that is up for the voter ID. I think that Senator Fetterman will likely vote for it as well. Again, thank you to Senator Collins, but Thune needs to bring it to the floor, and it needs to happen immediately.
But look, I mean, this talking filibuster has never been used. You just heard the senator from Tennessee, Senator Hagerty, say they are examining it right now.
Look, I would actually argue back with him and politely correct him in that the talking filibuster was actually how the filibuster did work historically. And then there came kind of this perversion of what it's currently known as. And I would say, look, Maria, you have only a few jobs in Congress. One is to argue your ideas and the other is to vote. And so if they're saying that, you know, it's all these procedural hurdles and they have to allocate time for it and they might not have the ability to do that debate, I would say, look, you're in the Senate. It's a wonderful job. It's a privilege and you should get to it. And so I would say that they need to actually embrace what the filibuster was, get back to what it traditionally stood for. And I think that every single member of a House and Senate that debates this issue will see that the American people bipartisanly want this, even Democrats. So if Democrats are watching this, the Republican Party is going to deliver on this for you. So remember that when you vote in the midterms.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't they want secure elections? And the way that they talk about it is that the SAVE Act is the opposite. I mean, the other day, Chuck Schumer said it is dead on arrival when it gets to the Senate.
Yeah, look, Chuck Schumer also said that people that were pushing it, like myself, Maria, I'm sure you saw that I was threatening to shut down the government over this. But, you know, he was saying that it was Jim Crow era laws. And what's so ironic about that is that, you know, that the Democrat Party was the party that did champion that. But I politely said and corrected them in that there's a famous piece of footage of Barack Obama showing voter ID to vote. In order to even vote on the House floor, you have to have voter ID. We actually have a card that has our identification on it. And so this whole argument, I think, is to try to really radicalize the blue-anons. That's what I call these conspirators that think that President Trump is going to steal the midterms. You can see that many Democrats are starting to message on that currently. But again, this is one of the most bipartisan popular issues on the same level, I think, as banning insider trading. And so I think that if we champion these, if Thune moves forward and brings us to the floor, which he has every ability to do so, if he embraces the talking filibuster, I think that this is a massive, massive win for the country and for generations to come.
Well, Congressman, real quick before you go, the Department of Homeland Security was not funded. The Democrats would not agree. We are now in a partial shutdown for the Homeland Security Department, certainly. How long will this last?
I don't think it's going to last too long because you're seeing TSA is now going to start having issues with travelers. And then also, too, look, I have many Coast Guard units in my district, and those service members are not getting paid. But again, what they're trying to do is they're lying to the American people, saying that this is somehow going to affect ICE operations, and it's not. And so I think it's a losing argument for them. But you'll see them probably start to pivot to the voter ID, and we're going to get that done. I have faith.
Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks very much. We'll be watching your work. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna.
God
bless. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. The SAVE Act. It only makes sense that only citizens should be voting. What's going on? What's happening? Comment down below. Let me know what you think, because we use ID for everything in America. But voting, that's crazy. I'm going to step out. Make sure you hit a like before you go anywhere. My name is Noel, here at Verbal on Life. Hopefully you enjoy the show. With that said, see you in the next video.